Today we're going to be changing the fluid and filter on a 2016 Dodge Challenger. It's 392 Scat Pack, and it's got the ZF8HP transmission. It's going to be my first time doing this. I've done the nag ones and of course the old school stuff, but this one's a little bit new for me, so I'm going to walk you through it. Hope you enjoy. So guys, I drained the transmission. I don't want to bore you with things that you know is going to happen, but there is a 10 millimeter plug in the bottom of these plastic pans, and it's plastic plug into a plastic pan. I'm not thrilled with that, but that's the way they did it. So anyway, as I started to loosen it, it was binding and I didn't want to strip it out. So if you can get it to move a little bit, you can spray some WD-40 in there, or some PB Blaster, and then I just worked it back and forth, and it helped that plug unscrew without binding. You know, sometimes plastic will bind when it's plastic against plastic, but there's your plug. And like I said, 10 millimeter hex T. Once my fluid's drained, I always keep track of how much fluid came out of something, and almost 5 quarts came out of this. So I put it into a clean catch can, and then I was able to measure it. So I got 5 quarts, and I'll start by putting the same amount back into it, and we'll get to that in a little bit. It's got to be special fluid from Mopar, they say. So we went ahead and bought Mopar special 8 and 9 speed ATF fluid. So anyways, then you got some torque bolts. There's 13 torque bolts to hold this pan in, and one of them, you can't see it really well, but one of the bolts is behind this little tab on the transmission cross member, and you can't get your torque socket up on that one. The rest of them, no problem, but that one you cannot get. Now, I've seen these cut off, not the right way to do it. I don't know what the purpose is, but anyway, I don't go cutting stuff like that. The torque driver will get up in there, and then I put a channel lock on the torque driver, and I was able to get that final one down without a problem, without having to cut anything or removing the cross member. That would take a little bit more time, and then that comes right down. So we got that, and go ahead and pull down the rest of them. Remember, built-in filter. Built-in filter in the pan. And Chrysler says it's a lifetime filter, but I don't like the sounds of that. I think it should be done maybe every 80,000. That's just my opinion. All right, here's the pan down. I'll get it on the bench, give you guys a closer look. So here we have the old ZF pan down. Here's a new one right from Mopar. Has the magnets. It's got 4 of them, and that's to grab any kind of clutch material, any kind of debris, and they're removable, so you can lift up on them, pull them out, clean them if you had to. And this is your filter. So the Mopar one comes from the factory, is permanent. I mentioned that earlier. It doesn't come out. So you got your old one, you got your new one. So there is other variations of these pans. So I'll give you an example. Dorman sells a replacement pan with a removable filter. I have one of the filters here, and this is the Dorman removable. So can't do anything here in our Mopar pans because they're molded in there, where the Dorman design has a couple screws, actually 4 screws, that would hold this down into Dorman's pan, and Dorman only. So if you put a Dorman plastic pan up, you can get these. I've heard they leak. I've heard the pans leak. So we opt out of doing a Dorman exchange and went to the actual Mopar one. You know, Mopar's Mopar, made in America, by the way, at least these are, and hoping for a better fit than any other aftermarket. So that is a couple of differences. When you pull your old one out, there's a rubber O-ring on this port where it goes into the valve body. You know, that's going to be your filter. Make sure that O-ring's not stuck up in your valve body of the transmission. Make sure it came down, and then make sure your new one, of course, is on there and ready to go. You never know. Oh, and here is the old fluid, and it has about 4.5 quarts that came out of it, and I'm going to start by putting that back in, and then going through some steps. At different temperatures, you check the side plug and add or reduce the amount that you have in there. Alrighty. New pan is up. Like I was saying, you guys know how to put bolts in and out, so I don't want to waste time. So new bolts are up, and the book says 89 inch-pounds is what you torque the 13 bolts around the pan. You do it in a crisscross manner. First hand tight, crisscross them, and then torque them, and then crisscross them. Now, plug on the side of the transmission is an 8mm steel plug. The new pan came with that, and the new pan also came with new torque bolts, which is kind of nice. So I'm going to attempt to put the fluid back in here, at least what came out of it. Like I was saying, 4.5 quarts came out of the trans, and Chrysler says only Mopar 8 and 9 speed ATF. So that's what we got, not anything else. It's not even red. It's an actual green color. You can see it in the pump tube. So at any rate, transmission's nothing to clown around with. Maybe something else will work, but we're going with what they're specifying. Blah blah blah. So little plug is out, 8mm hex. Like I said, little plug is out of the side. Got my tube in there, and I'm just going to continue to pump. It's my little handy dandy quart pump, which I really like it, but they don't last forever, so it's a little bit sticky. But at any rate, we'll get as much in here as we can. I'm not going to bore you with putting them all in there, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, sitting here in the Challenger. By the way, 3 quarts went into the transmission while it was cold before it started to come out the side plug. So Chrysler recommends once you have that that amount in, not necessarily 3 quarts, but once you have X amount in and where it starts to come out the side plug of the transmission, now it's time to go to your next step. And going to your next step would be bringing the transmission up to the proper temperature to add more fluid while it's running. So what the book says is 86 degrees Fahrenheit up to 122 degrees Fahrenheit. And then once you do that, you can add more. There are some steps to do to go ahead and purge the valve body, get all the air out of the system. And that's what we're going to do here now. So I'm going to start the vehicle. Transmission temp looks like it's at 105, 107. So you want to do this, like I said before, it reaches 122. And there's a couple reasons for that. I'll show you underneath the car later on. So they recommend taking your shifter. This is an automatic car. Going into reverse, foot on the brake, and holding it in reverse for 5 seconds. And then going into neutral for 5 seconds. Going into drive for 5 seconds. Wheels off the ground. Take your foot off the brake. Your tires are spinning. And you let this car shift into second gear. Okay, I can feel it hit second gear, and you should keep it into second gear. 5 seconds. Foot on the brake. Slow your wheels down. It says then put the car in neutral and bring your RPMs up to 2,000. And then some, but at least 2,000 for 5 seconds. And you're purging trans and bringing the temp up to par. You can see the temperatures rising on the trans temp. Okay. Foot on the brake. Into park. And I'll meet you under the car. I couldn't do the final step with it running and filming at the same time. I did it, but it's too loud underneath here for you guys to hear me talking. So it's got straight pipes other than the cats. It's loud. So what I done was operating temperature. Talked about that, 86 degrees to 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Plug back out the side. Continue filling until it starts to seep out of the side. And then you put your plug back in, and that's good. The cool thing is 4.5 quarts went back in, and originally 4.5 quarts came out. So I feel good that the original amount of fluid was in here for the service, and that's what's back in. So torque your side plug. It's 25 foot-pounds. That's the side plug, not to be mistaken for the bottom. 25 foot-pounds side plug, torque spec. Now I'll run it, check it for leaks, see what it does, and I'm gonna show you guys the old fluid color compared to the new fluid color, and I'm also gonna show you something else that changes this fluid level if it goes past 122 degrees Fahrenheit fluid temperature. All right. Okay, just a couple quick notes to wrap things up. So up front above your steering rack on the driver's side, you have a transmission cooler bypass valve, and this opens up and starts cooling the transmission fluid above 122 degrees Fahrenheit. That's probably why they want you to do this when it's under 122 degrees Fahrenheit, but over 86 degrees Fahrenheit. So transmission gets hot, fluid starts circulating front of the car, through the transmission cooler, back into the transmission, and it's designed to cool down the fluid. So if you drain this transmission hot when you're gonna do your service and the valve is open, you're probably gonna get everything out of the cooler area and the lines, which is not a bad thing. But remember, if you add your fluid and it's not opened, when you add your fluid, later on, your fluid level will be low in your transmission. So it's a good idea to drive it, get the car hot, do a normal drive with it, then let it cool down, then get it back up to the servicing temperature. And that's above 86 degrees Fahrenheit, below 122 degrees, and then recheck the level in your pan in case you had, some purging and things to be done up here into the cooler. All right, let's take a look at the fluid. Old trans fluid, new trans fluid. Definite difference. Old is definitely darker. New is a nice green. There's the fluid we used. And there is the pan we used. And BMW uses these too. Audi, Volkswagen, Land Rover. That transmission's been around for several years. And it is the ZF8HP is what they call it. So you can go out and get another fluid that's not by Mopar, but it'll just say ZF8HP fluid, and that would be also correct. But this stuff's about $30-something a quart, unfortunately. But we went with the proper Mopar stuff, like I said earlier in the video, and that's all. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if I can answer any questions, hit me up. I'll try my best. And I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.